Welcome back to the Evolve Exchange. Today we're diving into a topic that's becoming increasingly important for businesses, secure and compliant communications. We're joined by Haydn Faltyn, Chief Executive Officer from Secure Pii, to discuss how organizations are protecting conversations, reducing risks, and tackling challenges like chargeback and fraud. To kick us off, can you please tell us a little bit about your role and how Secure Pii works within the space, Haydn?
Yeah, thanks, Courtney, and hi, Paul, and hi to the partner community. Real pleasure to be here to talk about, as you said, a really important topic. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Secure Pii, and our job is to work with service providers like Evolve IP to add value to their network, being the number one motivation. And we've decided to focus on the area of securing phone calls, particularly those that contain PII or personally identifiable information. And the hottest topic in PII is credit card, and particularly management of credit card fraud. And our job is to connect our network to the Evolve IP network and to make sure that we are delivering a value-added service called Secure Call. And it allows businesses of all sizes in any industry who happen to be taking a credit card payment, particularly by phone over the Evolve IP network. Our job is to make sure that that information is not exposed to the customer and the customer's environment, being their data networks, their voice networks, their computers, and the headsets of the people running in kind of informal contact center environments. And that's our mission in life, is to participate in improving the security of phone calls running across the Evolve IP network.
Great. And chargebacks and disputes are becoming a major issue for many organizations. Why has this challenge grown so significantly?
Well, I think the chargeback situation is an interesting one. It's a real signal to a bank that there's something going on inside the customer environment in terms of refunds. Why is it that a business is starting to have to give money back for what a customer, an end user, is claiming they didn't pay for? And it's become a real trend in SMB that fraudsters are kind of taking a lend, knowing that a SMB's business is not that well organized. They may not be running some great systems and structures to be able to defend themselves in terms of what's called a chargeback claim from a bank. And they just ring the bank and say, hey, I didn't buy that thing. And the bank says, all right, well, I'll trust you more than I trust the small business. And they'll go and get the money back from the small business. And there's a great statistic that says for every dollar that's forfeited or claimed back in a chargeback by a bank, the small business is paying anything up to $3.70 in lost revenue, in lost stock, in chargeback fees, and all the like. So our mission is to help small businesses on the Evolve IP network be in a far better position to defend themselves against a bank's chargeback claim. And the way we do that is we get the customer to enter their credit card details on the phone while talking to the business, not have the business enter those credit card details into a terminal, into a form or something like that. So really flip the script and have the customer, who therefore must have entered their credit card details, enter them so that the business is defendable. That's the ambition.
Great. And what industries are being impacted the most by chargeback and communication disputes?
Yeah, it's a great one. The thing is that websites and online transactions becoming tighter and tighter, more and more structured, a lot more security. But the last bastion, the Wild West, if you like, of payments, particularly over the phone, are where the weakest links are at the moment. And so we see lots of chargeback claims, lots of what we call PCI fraud, payment card industry fraud, credit card fraud, kind of being targeted towards the phone channel because it is kind of the loosest, it is the least auditable, least secure mode of conversation, if you like, in communication and transaction over the phone. And so you see a lot in hospitality, a lot in retail, a lot in trade and trade desks and the like, where you'll find people looking to take an edge and to try and not pay for something, maybe use someone else's credit card and maybe deny actually purchasing those goods. And so we're seeing travel, hospitality, insurance, retail, those sorts of industries where you may not be running a structured call center. You could just be running a small accounts receivable business. and you need to be in a far better position to not expose yourself to a customer's credit card and therefore potentially set yourself up for a chargeback. So lots of industries, probably all of them, who take credit card payments from time to time would be susceptible to chargeback claims.
Is it fair to say as well, Haydn, that a lot of industries that take deposit payments are also very open to this kind of fraud, because people try with a smaller transaction? So if I'm going to pay a £100 deposit, but the actual larger transaction is going to be in the thousands, if the £100 goes through, I'm a little bit more confident that the card, me as a fraudster, the card details I've got are not blocked yet, they're active. £100 spent may not trigger anything within the bank. So particularly those sectors that, like the automotive industry, that may take second-hand car dealerships, for example, that will take a smaller deposit, they're open to those kind of transactions as well, because fraudsters will try in 2 hits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they'll try and kind of wash the credit card through a system to make sure it's a working credit card. We were seeing some of our earlier IVR work that we did where customers were ringing in to do 10-cent transactions for a toll road or something like that. And it's like, what is that? And the IVR shouldn't be respecting those sorts of payments because they're clearly just fraudsters checking whether their credit card's working or not. So yeah, you're right. It's kind of as I said, it's kind of the Wild West in SMB, and I guess we're here to help Evolve IP's partners take that proposition to their SMB customer base. They might be running a help desk or an informal call center, and they may be being hit up by these smaller transactions, which are hard to identify. Maybe the systems are a bit looser. You don't have big call center solutions and big CRMs to manage some of this stuff. And the technology that we have embedded into the Evolve IP network was once only able to be configured and deployed by very, very large contact centers who could afford the structure, the discipline, the mechanics of all the things that audit and check and validate before a transaction happens. It's not that world anymore. Everything's gone cloud and everything's more consumptive. And we're here to suggest that idea of PCI compliance, protecting card payments by phone, is not just available to the large call centers. It's available to every SMB in any industry, no matter how structured and formal they are, of any size, down to even one individual handset on the Evolve IP network, to secure it and to protect themselves from being exposed to their customer's credit card. And so our hope is that they do find these transactions that have been susceptible in the past no longer susceptible to those.
And it's I think it's fair to say that this isn't just a product to allow you to take card payments or a product to allow you to tick a PCI compliant box. It's also almost an insurance policy for you as a small business. Like you would take historically insurance out to protect yourself against robberies and cash being taken from your till. So why are you not protecting your payments that are probably more increasingly happening over the phone or happening in a digital space? It is a lightweight insurance product against that as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and even stronger still as a motivation to try and have a look at what's happening on your Evolve IP phone network. You probably are taking dozens, if not thousands, of credit card payments a year for all sorts of deposit payments and bookings and staff events and travel and holidays and all sorts of crazy stuff that people do. And it feels very benign and very simple, but for the business, they're now having to tick some boxes in their own small business insurance policy that says, yes, we're insured for this much money for loss and fire and theft. And there'll be a question now being asked about PCI. With the standards evolving and tightening from the PCI Council, which is a global entity that mandates the way in which every business on the planet needs to look after customers' credit card details, those standards are getting tighter and they're driving more compliance down into smaller and smaller merchants, or the Evolve IP customer base in effect. And so they're going to have to ask the question or answer a question in their insurance policy that they renew every year. Do you take credit card payments? And the answer is yes, probably on my website, and yes, I take them by phone. And are you PCI compliant? And you can say yes. It's kind of like saying, do you wear your seatbelt every day? Yes, I do, but prove it. But you now need to prove it. So as a smaller business, you're now needing to demonstrate that you are PCI compliant. And the best way to do that is just to outsource it, is to say, yes, I'm PCI compliant. Here's Evolve IP's network. Here's Secure Call as a feature on that network. And here's its attestation that it is compliant with the standards. And then that small business can give that as a proof of point back to their insurer, back to their security assessor, their auditor, whoever it might be that's asking, their bank. And so the best outcome is to not to worry, not to stress as a small business, but to outsource just as a feature on top of your office telephony or your informal contact center or even your formal contact center.
Yeah, because I guess the changes with the PCI rules, particularly over here in the UK as well, is that if you're taking calls and you're recording, your whole network becomes in the scope of PCI. So your laptops have to be making sure they're not gleaning any credit card data if you're using a soft client. Your data network, everything that's in that building suddenly becomes in focus for that compliancy. Whereas, like you say, if you can outsource it to you guys, and we may touch on some of the technical pieces of how you work as this conversation goes on, but by outsourcing it to you, it's your problem to make sure it's PCI compliant. It's our problem to make sure that's compliant. And also with that means that's in our network, that's in the Evolve network, it's in the Involve space. So your internal network is not then brought into scope and then not under the sort of microscope with those kind of investigations should anything ever happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're starting to talk a bit technical and a bit turkey about how it all hangs together. Also, that's cool. Well, yeah, it's about de-scoping the merchant or the customer's environment from credit card information. If we just think about what that is, in Evolve IP's world, that's a VoIP phone call. That VoIP phone call is a data packet. And under the definition of telephony management within PCI, that VoIP packet is in scope. And if it's traversing your routers and your hubs and your firewalls, as all other data packets do, just like all your website traffic, you're securing that website traffic as a data packet. Why are you not securing your other VoIP data packets running across your network, which is a credit card delivered over your network into the systems, networks, and individuals, the people in your business? And ultimately, people are often the weakest link in a security posture. It's the person from within that's the problem. So yeah, let's take them out as individuals, and let's take the data networks and voice networks out from having to carry a VoIP packet that ultimately is a credit card. Let's take them out of call recordings, and so that you can continue to record the phone call, even at the most important point of the phone call, which is in effect, the verbal contract, which is, are you okay for me to charge your credit card ending in 1234? Often that's all missed when legacy PCI solutions that may purport to be compliant, like pause, resume recording, pauses the recording. At the moment, you're actually trying to validate the payment and prove the payment, again, which is a chargeback problem to be managed. And so our strategy is just keep all that VoIP traffic that has credit card in it out of the customer merchant network and their call recordings. And the way we do that is by interacting with the Evolve IP VoIP cloud and participating in the call in real time. No IVR systems, no automated systems. This is a person-to-person conversation happening here. But any time there's some credit card information entered by the customer via DTMF, our network, which is participating in the phone call, is able to remove that so that is not propagated through to the customer's leg of the phone call and is therefore clean and green and go in terms of PCI compliance on the phone call. So yeah, we want to take all routers, hubs, switches, phones, handsets, SIP handsets, headsets, people, we take that out of scope. That's the job that we do, but we can't do it by ourselves. We have to do it in combination with the Evolve IP switching network. So we depend upon Evolve IP's Broadworks platform and all of its call control APIs, and combining Secure Call plus the power of the Evolve IP call control network, we're able to manipulate the phone call that's running across that Broadworks Evolve IP network and participate in a way in which removes that VoIP packet, which is the bit that is causing all the problems. What what it really means is there's a great opportunity for all the partners out there to lift their customers' compliance from maybe taking credit card payments still, thinking that pause, resume recording is enough. Pause, resume, and record of recordings is okay for the call recording vendor, but it doesn't do anything to help the merchant remove that VoIP packet from their network. So I guess I'm here to say, in combination with the Evolve IP network, let's allow the call recordings to continue, and let's allow those VoIP packets not to enter the end customer merchant's environment.
And how do these solutions help organizations feel more prepared when disputes or compliance challenges arise?
Yeah, I think when a chargeback or a dispute arises, it's because an end user, a consumer, rang the bank and said, I didn't pay for that. I don't recall that. And often, particularly SMB businesses, don't have a great way of tracking that. And so when the bank puts a chargeback claim on the SMB, maybe from up to 3 months ago, the audit trails, the systems that they've got to be able to defend themselves are very loose and very scant. Our whole proposition here is that if a payment was made, it must have been made by the customer, because the business cannot enter credit card details into a form anymore. The business didn't ask for the credit card to be spoken. The business didn't enter the credit card information into a payment gateway. Secure Call captured the credit card from somewhere in the cloud, in the Evolve IP cloud, and actually captured the credit card from the customer. So the customer must have bought it. And all that is trackable, auditable, loggable, and presentable by the merchant back to the bank to say, they bought it, we didn't ask for it, we didn't enter it, the customer must have, and they're in a far better position in terms of chargebacks. It's really interesting. SMBs, knowing this is such a problem and so hard to defend themselves, only attempt to defend themselves about 50% of the time. So if they get a couple of chargeback requests a month, they might think it's too hard half the time, and they just give the money back to the bank and pay the chargeback fee. So this should be, in effect, not just a compliance opportunity for the Evolve IP partner to have a conversation about what in effect is PCI compliance, because you're obligated to, as a merchant, to have that. But this is about money. This is about not leaking money as an SMB, and not about giving money back just because a customer says that they didn't buy it. And that money directly hits the bottom line of an SMB. And I'd hope to think that an Evolve IP partner can bring not just a PCI compliance conversation to an SMB, but this is about money and about protecting revenue and about being defending yourself when you take a credit card payment over the phone, and be comfortable and happy that you're doing it in a way in which is defensible. So it should be peace of mind. To answer your question, it should be about knowing that the systems are in place, even down to the single handset, to know that when taking a payment over the phone, it's defendable, it's compliant, and the customer knew they entered their credit card, so they're less likely to suggest that they didn't buy something in the area of chargeback claims.
Yeah, I guess particularly those smaller businesses as well that are potentially more susceptible to like friendly fraud. So those people that ring the bank going, I don't recognise this business name, I've never spoken to them, I've never purchased it, and it's just because their banking name is slightly different, or it could be a sole trader that the bank account is their personal name and the business is what appears. Obviously, that's who they think they're paying, because that's where the receipt comes from, but actually the bank payment goes to a personal bank account. And if you're not fighting half of those, that could be a hell of a lot of your revenue that's just being handed straight back. Plus, you're then paying for the privilege of having to hand it back.
That's right. And you know, the bank's posture on it, and rightly, is that the customer's always right. And so they'll always give the money back to the customer. When we have that issue, as individuals, we might have the same problem. We'll get our money back, but the bank goes and requests the money back from the merchant. And half the time in SMB, they just don't have the facilities to defend themselves. And the reality is they did enter the credit card. They did ask for the credit card. it did transit their network and it did get entered into a system somehow. So that's hard to defend. So we like to flip that script and say, well, hang on, we didn't ask, we didn't enter those credit card details. We got Secure Call and the Evolve IP network to transact on our behalf as an outsource. So it should significantly improve our customers' comfort in the Evolve IP network. That ultimately Evolve IP network is responsible for connecting a business to a consumer, and it's a business to consumer conversation, and that network should be secure. And that business should be feeling safe that if a customer offers a credit card over that network, that they're protected in doing so. And that's the value add that we'd like to have the Evolve IP partners bring to customers and say, you can trust the Evolve IP network that we've secured this phone call and you're not going to suffer the consequences of either PCI breaches, PCI fraud, and or a chargeback claim coming back from the bank. So that's the mission.
And can you share an example of how a customer may have benefited from having better protection or visibility into their conversations?
Yeah, I think two things. I think we're here to fix the pause resume myth. On one hand, that says that pausing and resuming a conversation and making sure that it's not in a call recording is PCI compliant. And we're kind of here to say that it's convenient. It's kind of good if we were to suggest that's not quite correct and accurate. It's good for the call recording vendor, not so good for the merchant who still had their staff take the credit card details. And so we want to fix that bit too. And we want to track the fact that it happened and that the staff member didn't ask, but the customer entered. And so one of the examples we have of that is a customer of ours who very similar to a typical Evolve IP Partners customer. They run a quarry and they ship lots of concrete out every day. And then in the mid-morning, they often get requests to ship more concrete because someone's running out. And they were often hit by people calling up, ordering more concrete, and then up to 3 months later denying the fact that they'd ordered that extra concrete. And so the call flow goes a little bit like this. I'm in the middle of pouring concrete, I need more concrete. And the staff member would take out an FPOS terminal and punch in the credit, ask for, take the credit card details down and punch them in. The person on the other end of the phone would know that the fact that was not a very structured process of leaving the credit card details. So they would take that opportunity, anything up to 3 months hence, to ring the bank and say, I didn't do that. And they were getting chargebacks every month from different companies and people ordering concrete. And so they put Secure Call into their network. They kind of, again, flipped the script, and it said to the business, don't ask for the credit card. Just on your Broadworks endpoint, click this Secure Call button to secure it, and then get the customer to enter their credit card details. And the number of chargebacks that came from that type of transaction disappeared. Each transaction chargeback was anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 that they were losing, and they ultimately saved that back every month, hit into the bottom line, which more than paid for their entire telecommunications phone bill that they had across their business.
And how do you see secure communications evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, I think we can't have a conversation without talking about AI, right? So let's take that thing out of the bottle and have a quick chat about what does AI and compliance and PCI mean. And we know already, particularly in the larger end of town, where customers are deploying AI assistants to help staff and virtual assistants that are doing self-service, that we can see that they're being compromised and infected with what we call PII, personally identifiable information. So the move forward is about not just protecting businesses from credit card information, but protecting businesses from being exposed to other forms of PII. like birth dates and social security numbers and driver's license numbers and the rest of the PII portfolio. And we know today that a lot of AI applications are stalling. Enterprise applications, not particularly SMB, but larger enterprise AI, virtual assistants and the like. Those projects are stalling because of security and compliance concerns. That the conversations that these assistants are having does contain PII. That PII is being used to potentially train the LLMs. And there's a whole lot of brakes being put on about how do we fix that. And so Secure Pii exists to do exactly that, is to deliver, for example, PCI compliant AI applications that sit on the end of the Evolve IP network. So that when an AI application is interacting with a customer for whatever reason, and we know that that conversation could contain a payment, then you bring Secure Call into the conversation to redact a credit card. And in the future, a social security number, so that your AI applications are not being trained on, in effect, contaminated data in the models. So that's where we believe we can harness sort of the value of an Evolve IP network, which will have a whole lot of AI applications on it. And we expect that Secure Call plus the Evolve IP network will ensure that AI applications can be delivered in a compliant way without compromising a business's privacy and security obligations in terms of GDPR and other privacy policies around the world, in the US and the UK and Europe. So that's where we think it's headed. That's the AI conversation and how it relates to not just credit cards, but other forms of PII as well.
And I guess a lot of people that are using, I'm sorry, going to keep this AI thread going a little longer, but people that are using AI and installing it and running it internally, they think that data is only staying with them. They're not, the whole point of AI is it's learning off of other AI. So a vendor's AI is learning from customer A and customer Z. It may not share that personal information, but until you've gone through the guarantees and you know that that has happened, that customer Z and A, they are technically talking to each other to make that AI better, to make that agent more understandable to an end customer, to be able to digest the information that is coming in. The whole point of it is it's self-learning. It will self-learn from any pool of information that it's got. So as you say, you're hoping to go with, we can do the payment section, but I want to stop those date of births being passed across. I want to stop, oh, hang on, this person's starting to talk through their address. Let's kick in. Like, this is where this conversation's about to go. Let me make sure that that's compliant. In all will in the world, we think those terms and conditions we're signing when we're looking at AI is protecting us against all of that. But let's guarantee it. Let's make sure that there is something there that's going to do that for us.
We definitely need the guardrails, not just around how AI thinks and what it responds with. We think about those guardrails in terms of us in this world of AI now, but we think about those guardrails in terms of privacy and security and what do we do with the data.
Great. And are businesses becoming more proactive around communication security, or are many still reacting after the issue has occurred?
Yeah, I think clearly there's more teams in more businesses that are being tasked with proactive work around security and compliance. More businesses spending more money every year on not just AI applications and transforming customer experience, but also about the security layer of that business. And so in the past, a lot of the sales journeys have been about risk and breach rectification, and now it's about proactive work to try and not just remediate once something's happened, but do something about it prior. And so that's why we get asked to put Secure Call onto networks like the Evolve IP network and make it a universally available, economically viable security solution that sort of allows us to scale from one handset to thousands of handsets economically and do it rapidly because time is of the essence, and so the deployment cycles and those sorts of things are really key to businesses, and that's why we think having a pre-deployed network-ready PCI solution already on the Evolve IP network means that the Evolve IP partners can respond immediately to a request for a fix, because the lawyers in the business have said stop, or the security auditors come in and said stop, before you move forward. You need to fix this and remediate with a solution. And so that's why we've been investing heavily to get Secure Call pre-wired into the Evolve IP network. So there's rapid response to a business's need to solve this thing before it becomes a problem in terms of a breach. So yeah, a lot more front foot stuff going on since PCI 4.0 came to town sort of a year ago, and it's just a topic where that acronym is just known a lot more now. That PCI acronym is known now by a lot more people this year than it was 2 years ago, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's almost a responsibility now as well on us and the partner world to make the end customer aware of those changes, that particularly in the SME world, who don't have a compliance officer or a legal officer that's checking everything that they're signing, they may not know about PCI 4.0. Yes, companies with governance and compliance teams, you hope they're aware of it, but it's certainly an education piece that we need to pass on, and this is why sessions like this are so good. We can pass this on to our partner network, and the partner network then pushing that down into the corporate world, and that's what's so great about a partner network, is it can spread that message widely, quickly, and as you say, with the tools that you guys have invested in, making that adoption so quick and rapid, if and when it is taken up by those businesses from a deployment point of view, is essentially a tick box and some merchant details, and you could be spun up within a matter of if it's a vendor that we're already working with, which is most of them, hours, minutes, and it's as simple as that. And yeah, we've got to start with the education piece, which I think you guys and we have done very well for the last 12-18 months, and it's now the partners taking that forward to the next step and into the actual working world. And yeah, it's not I could have that. It's I should have that, and then I must have that. That's we're kind of in that should have bracket at the moment.
Yeah, dead right. I think a lot of smaller businesses have been used to being able to light up a website in a few moments and to deploy plugins to make it secure. And what's been difficult is the voice channel has been something that's taken some time. We designed Secure Call to be something akin to adding a plugin to your website. So think of this as being a plugin to your voice communication services, and it should be able to be deployed in minutes, not weeks. It shouldn't have physical infrastructure connected to it that sort of interacts with the telephony layers and has to re-engineer the telephony to route phone calls a certain way. None of that, because that's friction that SMBs can't afford and takes too long. And so our promise through the work we did with Evolve IP's provisioning systems, through the automations that Evolve IP have built out into our platform, that this should be, as you said, a tick box for deployment, not a project for deployment, which is kind of the new thing in this space. That PCI compliance has been oh goodness gracious, now we've got a project to think about, and it's going to be 6 months, and I've got 4 months because my auditor said he's going to be back in 4 months and we better have it fixed by then. And so the projects are expensive. The infrastructure outlays are large. And that's not what we want. We want to be able to have this just as a value-added feature to a business phone line. And that's thankfully to the Evolve IP networks tech running across the network in terms of call control mechanisms and access and permissions, we're able to do that and have this deployable instantly from a provisioning flow. And really practically be demonstrating that you're PCI compliant on your phone calls within minutes, not weeks and months.
And finally, what advice would you give an organisation reviewing their communications and compliance strategy today?
Advice. I would try and give them the advice that they are entering into a new realm of governance and a new realm of obligation that they may not have been aware of as a merchant, as a customer. And I'd hope that the Evolve IP partners can take the message that that's not necessarily needs to be a scary thing, that the standards are tightening and that these obligations are growing on smaller and smaller sized businesses, and that there is a simple answer, and the advice is to outsource the credit card collection process to the Evolve IP network, which uses Secure Call. It isn't a project, it isn't a headache, it is a simple outsourcing function, and it is one that we can demonstrate immediately, allows them to, like they would on their website, demonstrate that they're PCI compliant. We can now demonstrate that on their voice calls, which may not be as frequent, but just as important, maybe even as larger value, that they can be demonstrated to whomever asks that they are now PCI compliant when they do so. And I'd ask about how to become more defensible in chargeback claims from the bank. Have a think about maybe how many you receive per annum. Maybe it is only 1 or 2 chargebacks per annum, but if that's $2 or $3 or $4 or $5,000 of lost stock, goods, time, and fees, then you've paid for your entire Evolve IP subscription, including Secure Call, for the year. And so that's some of the advice I'd like the partners to own, to take to a merchant customer and ask them about those sorts of topics.
Great. Well, that's all for today's episode of the Evolve Exchange. Thank you so much, Haydn, for joining us and sharing all your insights. I'm Courteney Kettyle, here with Paul Fletcher, and we'll be back soon welcoming our next guest to keep the conversation going.